welcome Kim Longhi, who's going to talk to us about Brecht and contemporary theater practice and training in the US. She serves on the faculty of the Department of Theater Arts and Dance at the University of Minnesota in the United States. And she is a senior teaching specialist. So I suppose you primarily do practical work with acting students or dance students. And I would be very interested to hear more about that. She has toured internationally and nationally as a core company member with Margolis Brown Adapters Company, collaborating and performing in their original works. As the first director of education for the Margolis Method Center, she worked closely with Kari Margolis to develop curriculum and training programs. She has presented her research widely at conferences and published on the Margolis technique and on Brecht. In addition to her academic work, she has served as the artistic director of Combustible Company, a company in the Twin Cities. Twin Cities are Minneapolis and St. Paul in Minnesota for over a decade, creating and directing all of their original physical theater work. And welcome, and we are very eager to hear about two productions that you recently directed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Also, good morning. It's morning in Minneapolis, and I haven't had my second cup of coffee yet. So I am really excited to share with you my experiences with Brecht and Brecht's practices vis-a-vis Margolis method, my work with the Margolis Brown Adapters Company, and my work at the University of Minnesota. I have a little PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to share with you. And so if you just give me a moment, I will set it up. So this is a photo of a production that I did with Margolis Brown Adapters Company. And this moment is taken from the Thornton Wilder play, Our Town. And this is our version of the wedding scene. My own relationship to Brecht's aesthetics comes from multiple experiences and perspectives during the past 30 years as a director, teacher, and actor. Beginning with my intensive training with Kari Margolis in her physical acting method, I cultivated a working knowledge of what she calls the Brechtian moment. And that's when energy or emotion is expressed in more than one direction. In that way, the possibility of the character being pulled one way or the other exists. The Brechtian moment for Kari Margolis is where the actor skillfully brings the audience's focus to the character committing to one choice over another present possibility. So both choices, the energies that are acting upon the character, both of those would be manifest in the actor. The Brechtian moment is practiced within every exercise and improvisational structure in Margolis method until it becomes second nature for the trained actor, and it's ultimately manifested in every action, even a single breath. Through years of my work in the studio practicing this method, I developed a deeply embodied sense of dialectical energy that would inform my creative choices as actor, teacher, and director. My work as a core member of Margolis Brown Adapters Company gave me firsthand experience with Brecht's concept of V-effect. From 1994 to 2006, I was an integral collaborator, contributing to the development of their original productions. As the starting point to much of our work, we improvised extensively with everyday objects, books, ironing boards, garden hoses, even hot dogs, using precise physicality to create theatrical devices that would disrupt the audience's familiar assumptions and provoke them to see in new ways. This slide is from American Safari, which was a meditation on Americana and the American dream. And as you can see, we have a barbecue scene, but when the lid is lifted, it's a teleprompter talking to this character and soliciting him. In my teaching position at the University of Minnesota, I've had the opportunity to train the actors that I direct. I use Margolis' method as a basis for my own Brecht-inspired practice. I found that the concept of distancing has a unique resonance in studio work. When practicing Margolis' method, students are called on to experience themselves objectively as they work. So they're really able to focus on from the outside as well as the inside. They choose to place their bodies in unfamiliar circumstances. Optimally, students at work in this method are empowered to move beyond their physical habits and comfort zones. They experience whole body awareness in a new and estranged state. It is in this state of whole body alienation that the student discovers new possibilities and expands their creativity beyond their usual repertoire. And I will add that while the student is working in these unfamiliar ways, they have a vocabulary, so they're very aware and conscious of all the choices that they're making. A friend of mine once remarked as we were going to see a local production of Brecht's Galileo, she said, "I am so excited to see this. I have never seen a Brecht play before." And I replied to her, and you won't now because Brecht is dead. I believe the only way to actually see a Brecht play would be to experience it as a living phenomenon, directed by Brecht himself. Brecht's theater was predicated on the actual staging, performance, and audience interaction, as much or even more than on its literary content. And his theories about theater evolved and even seemed to contradict each other over the duration of his career. In order for us to really know what Brecht has written, we would have to experience it as a rehearsal or performance. Consequently, I don't aspire to faithfully reconstruct Brecht's plays as perfect museum pieces. Instead, I'm looking to Brecht for inspiration and using Margolis' method to imaginatively embody and interpret his ideas in order to create my own living theatrical aesthetic, an aesthetic that must continually evolve to speak with fresh power to my audience. In our department, we emphasize to our students that theater is a deeply political act that must respond to the moment that we are living in. This image from the final scene in our 2016 production of Threepenny Opera, in which Macheath is pardoned by King Trump. As we studied the character of Macheath, especially as portrayed in Brecht's novel, A Penny for the Poor, I was struck by the similarities between Macheath's character and Trump. This show took place 8 months before Trump was elected president, and that was in 2016. The world of Threepenny Opera is completely transactional. Love is for sale, justice is for sale. For me, the big question that came out of this work was, what are you worth? And who assigned that value? This question haunted my work on this play, as I simultaneously witnessed the events in my world, the Black Lives Matter movement, terrorist attacks, the Syrian refugee crisis, campaign finance, the political rhetoric of bullies, police brutality, gun violence, the healthcare debate, and mounting student debt. I chose to set Threepenny Opera at a time in the not too distant future, so that we could reference current events as recent history. This future world we created was nostalgic, evoking the sentimentality and idealism of the 50s that stimulated our economy while masking the threat of nuclear destruction. In this media-saturated world, every desire is commodified, and everyone consumes and consumes to assuage their deepest fears. The world of Threepenny Opera is decaying and on the verge of collapse, but no one is aware of it. I approached Threepenny Opera as an entertaining critique of an entertainment-driven marketplace. Our goal was to entertain the audience and at the same time cause them to question their enjoyment. In rehearsing and staging Threepenny Opera, we used the techniques of imbuing objects with life to create a V effect, dialectical acting by manifesting the tension between the actor's inner and outer physicality, and layering actions with the image and the use of space to reveal the fable. In order to explore the mechanistic commodification at work in the story, we used Margolis method exercises to embody the relationship of the actor to the object, seeking to make the object a character. According to director Di Treves, Brecht placed enormous emphasis on how his actors used props to reveal a human situation. The actor not only handles the prop, the object in turn dictates the movement of the actor. It can almost become another character. In Margolis' method, objects can cause, absorb, resist, and deny if we have the skill to imbue them with life and allow them to embody all the characteristics of another character. By exploring the relationship of actor to object in Threepenny Opera, we were able to generate actions with the objects that revealed their social gestus. Peachum uses his cane to create a genteel effect, but when the cane moves him, it reveals his violence toward his wife and his employees. The beggars use fake limbs to earn a living, but are also controlled by them. Polly uses her whip to scare Mac's gang into submission, but during her love song with Mac, the whip gently wraps itself around her neck. As Polly and Lucy politely negotiate for custody of their beloved McKeith, their teacups shake with rage, and the cups rise and fall as the power between the women shifts. A teaspoon lifts itself to Polly's eyes and dumps tears over her face. In creating the characters for Threepenny Opera, we worked to make them dialectical, embodying the opposite possibility in every action in order to make the audience aware of the potential for other choices. Margolis' method places a foundational emphasis on the actor being able to differentiate between outer gesture and core energy, and to make the audience aware of the relationship between the two. In order for the actors to embody their characters in terms of their social roles, they worked from the outside to the inside, making their choices based on external stimuli. Actors chose outfits from an array of rehearsal clothes and then found what the clothes did to their bodies, how they were affected. First, as they stood still, and then as they walked. Finally, each character picked up a prop and, letting it dictate their movement, found a voice and social type. We called this character A. I then challenged them to find the opposite embodiment for character A. This became character B. I then asked them to find and manifest the inside energy of character B while expressing the outer characteristics of character A. We then switched the prompt to playing character A on the inside and character B on the outside. In Brecht's notes to the opera, he states, "What has to be shown here is the displaying of the bride, her fleshliness at the moment of its final apportionment. At the very instant when supply must cease, demand has once again to be stimulated to its peak. The bride is desired all round. The bridegroom then sets the pace. It is, in other words, a thoroughly theatrical event." As a bride, Polly has become invisible as a person, as she is alternately displayed and ignored. She is the neglected centerpiece in a world where she is alien to the men who rule over it. There is no place for her to sit, so that ultimately she ends up lying over the table. We manipulated Polly's relationship to the laws of gravity in the scene to create a V effect that showed the audience the location of power in the scene. Using Margolis' method, the actor playing Polly was able to create a different sense of gravity in her body. As Carrie Margolis states, it is the expression of gravity that imbues the actor with a sense of life. Just the act of standing still would require the actor to express energy in at least two directions, a downward force expressing the gravitational pull and an upward force expressing the character's will to remain standing. In an effort to assert her power, Polly seizes the opportunity to provide entertainment and climbs onto the table to sing Pirate Jenny. Wearing the costume of an idealized bride with the image of a baby beauty queen projected onto her wedding dress, she sings about a woman's rage and violent revenge. At the end of the song, the gang applauds dully in a series of staccato claps that pull her all the way down until she is prostrate on the floor. From this point in the scene, she continually tries to stand, but is unable to. Brown is cordial and friendly as he regards her on the floor, but he makes no move to take her hand or to help her. As Mac and Brown reminisce about the glories of war in the Cannon song, their dancing and gestures repeatedly pull her to the ground. Polly's gestus in this scene is that she is only visible as a commodity, striving for power in a world where the laws of gravity do not permit her to stand. Fast forward now, 8 years later, to the fall of 2024, and I am directing Cabaret. We are in the midst of an election season in which the candidate Donald Trump is vowing to punish his political enemies and conduct mass deportations, and the social and political environment is tense on campus and off. Our production is scheduled to open a week after the election. The story of Cabaret begins on the eve of the disintegration of the Weimar Republic, in a space of creativity, self-expression, and joy, and also a space of denial. For me, denial was a dominant theme in the play. Every character practices some form of denial. Our intention was to create a beautiful and entertaining space and systematically unmask it to expose and challenge the denial that the cabaret offers. One of our framing devices was the use of a trapdoor, which changed in its function and significance over the course of the show. An important aspect of this production was the audience relationship to the performance. So for this production, I wanted to implicate the audience, making them conscious of their participation in the show. To create a more immersive space, we set tables throughout the audience so that the entire theater became the stage. The actors were present in the audience space throughout the first act. We also offered a pre-show during which actors moved through the space, performing and interacting improvisationally with the audience members. By immersing them in the performance, we heightened their involvement and their awareness of themselves as an audience, of their role. And we were able to heighten the tension of confrontation later in the show. At the end of Act 1, the show is ruptured by a member of the fascist party singing an anthem. During the anthem, the actors filled the aisles, surrounding the audience as they joined in the singing. This brought silence and discomfort to an audience that up till this moment had been laughing and clapping after every musical number. Audiences either didn't applaud or felt extreme conflict when applauding. This tension between what we feel is ethically right at the moment and what is expected of us was exactly the desired effect. In Act 2, denial is further pierced and the audience is challenged. Fraulein Schneider faces the dilemma of choosing love or succumbing to the increasing pressures of society, singing, "What would you do?" During the song, instead of the characters singing to other characters in the scene, we put light on the audience as the actors sang directly to them, asking them, with a storm in the wind, what would you do? In Act 2, the trap door is transformed with a propaganda poster. The cabaret acts become more overtly political and threatening. A charming love duet with a gorilla becomes an offensive anti-Semitic slur. Throughout the play, the staging reflected two realities occurring simultaneously, until the dangers of the outside world intrude and merge with the cabaret, becoming one act. Sally's final number begins over a prostrate and beaten Cliff as he crawls off the stage. The play continues to unravel as the cabaret disappears. As Sally continues to sing, the performers exit in a line evoking a mass deportation. Finally, the cabaret curtains fall, revealing the back wall of the theater. There is nothing left of the cabaret but the bones of the set. The characters have faded to shadows, facing the audience. The master of ceremonies repeats his ritual show gesture before attempting to exit the cabaret through the trap door, but it won't open. We are confronted with the fact that we are all in this together and there is no escape. I'd like to conclude with some words of Brecht that I found particularly inspiring. In a speech for Congress in Leipzig, given in May 1951, Brecht considered the state of the arts in Germany after the war. How was one to put on new productions for the new spectators with such a depraved theater, ruined both spiritually and technically? How was this to help create the new man, so necessary for the continent? How was the great fable to be unfolded to reveal the pivotal moments of that so essential social change? How was the context of the world about us to be formulated, once a fixed quantity, now an unsteady variable? How was the dramaturgy of contradiction and dialectical processes to be established, no longer claiming objectivity? How was the new positive critical attitude of the new audience to be constructed? Brecht's questions hauntingly presage my own, challenging me to reach beyond my own complacency and to evaluate my artistic vision in relationship to my society in this present moment. As I seek to challenge the next generation of theater makers, I look to Brecht's idea as a means of creative alienation with the power to transform. We become strange to ourselves in this liminal space. We are able to see ourselves in new ways and understand that no choice is inevitable and that change is possible. In this Margolis and Brecht-inspired theater, my hope is that we will question old norms, mine our creative strangeness for possibilities beyond what we know, and imagine our humanity in new ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for this very insightful presentation. We would like to invite you to ask questions right away, because there's no academic paper. It's a presentation that we all share and we can all engage in. And it's time, I think, to get into a conversation with everyone in the room. Yes?
Thank you so much, Professor. For it's a very short question. I want to what do you say? Provoke your reflections on this, because this whole idea of the new man that you mentioned in that Leipzig Congress speech, I mean, how, as a contemporary theater director, or director is again a very debated term, but then again, how would you probably reflect on this whole notion of new man? I would, and I mean, it's a very abstract, but if you could please, yeah. Yeah.
Well, actually, I would start by thinking of it as a new woman or a new person. I think that one of the things that I'm really interested in is kind of shaking up old norms in terms of how we identify socially, and a lot of that has to do with gender. For me, is another thing is like developing, and this, I think this was something Brecht was always after, in my opinion, was developing this consciousness, this new critical attitude that that isn't only critical, but that is creative. And a critical attitude that expresses and generates possibility, right? That in America, we our problem, I think, is that we don't do enough of this, and that everything is this or that. It's Republican or Democrat. It's black or white. And so I think in the theater that I keep trying to make, I'm looking to generate that, not just a critical attitude, but an attitude of creative possibility.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, thank you for this inspiring talks and also the slides, and I would love to see the show. But more so, I would love to be part of the rehearsal process for scientific reasons, because I see here a very interesting combination of the work with the V effect and the dialectical way of thinking, but also with physical acting and the work with energy. And if I understood correctly, you're trying to combine those in a way that sending or holding back energy becomes as a structural equivalent to what Brecht proposes for the way you deliver a line or the way you consider yourself as an actor within a rehearsal process. But maybe you can comment on this a bit more from the production perspective. How do you work, and how does this sound? Are there many discussions in the rehearsal room? Are there many attempts to deliver the text and to contradict at the same time? Or, because the slides don't show this, they look pretty American to me in their aesthetics and pretty entertaining. So how does it sound, and how do you go beyond the phenomenological insight that, of course, every effect you produce on stage is in itself dialectical, is a holding back and letting go in that amplitude?
Well, I think that your idea of, well, first of all, to me, the physicality should always inspire the voice. So whatever is happening with the body creates a unique effect with the voice. And for me, the physicality is the idea. The physicality itself, the embodied work, is also the intellectual idea. I think what you've said about holding back is really important. And the way that we express holding back is this idea of stored energy or potential energy, that there's a moment of choice instead of an immediate reaction. And it's in that moment of choice that you feel that if the energy is pulling this way or this way, that the character's in the middle and they're making a choice. It's not that it's inevitable for them. They have chosen it. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it sounds a little bit like the nicht sondern that Brecht explains in his text on the new technique of acting of the 1940, where he has these exercises in the back and the nicht sondern in the acting process. I don't know how you would translate it. Either or, that you have when you make a choice, but what happens if you wouldn't choose to do this but something else? So the idea of having in every moment of the acting process the awareness of being able to make choices. So that it's not like in Stanislavski you have an impulse and you follow it, but you have a moment of Verzögerung, delay, in which you can see the different forces pulling at the actor making a choice or not, making a choice to take the microphone or not, and I can show this in my just in the moment when I do it or do it not. I hesitate, and for some how I can see that how you describe it. It sounds like this is kind of trickling into your concept of physicality and the energies that you describe, of where I send my energy as a dancer is a choice.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
a choice. Or it should be a choice, yeah. And it should be a choice. So we have some more questions, however. You wanted to?
Hi, hello, Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
So good to see you. I had the privilege to see both productions, so the Threepenny Opera and Cabaret. I wanted to ask you, can you say a little more about how difficult it is to bring the students around to realize this choice and to this method of acting and what it does to them? I mean, are there some that are politicized through the process of rehearsal? And what does it do to the students to employ this kind of approach?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, I think that question is answered in two ways. One is in terms of training and breaking the norms of a psychological technique where, again, the actor is just following impulse and they're trying to immerse themselves in the character, versus the actor understanding that the character has this feeling, but that they are making a choice, and that the actor has to somehow either make that choice or rupture it and break it. And I think that students, I think that they do resist that training because they don't feel that it's natural. And I think the word natural is overused anyway in our vocabulary when we're talking about our actions, because everything we do, like all of our behavior, is socially informed. So what is natural? And I actually get them to question what is natural. In the training, I actually have them really like express that push and pull energy between them very fully physically, so that they can experience the moment where the energy is stored and they're not responding, but they could respond. So they have to really feel that potential energy. So that's just on a training basis. That's on how we warm up in the rehearsal room, how we talk about our energies being used or not used, choices being made or not made. In Cabaret, I worked a lot with the mask and just like what is on the outside and what is on the inside, and how they could really contradict each other. The students in the dance number in the second act, where it was a kick line in Cabaret, had to express this very mechanistic, militaristic movement. And most of them had a deep reaction of disgust. They didn't want to do that. And we had conversations about, like, why are you performing this? What is your intention? What is your intention to the audience? What do you want them to feel as your intention, even though your action is different. And I think that for them was a really effective way to perform that moment. And we do that all the way through, but that's an example. And then I would say that this particular piece of work helped our students, especially during cabaret, helped our students to understand that theater is political and that it is important to express resistance in a creative way. I will, on a kind of a more personal, really inside the rehearsal room moment, we had to rehearse, do a technical rehearsal, dress rehearsal, the night after the election. And I was sitting in a room with 70 people because I called everyone together, the actors, the designers, the crew, everyone involved in the production came into the theater space together, and we sat, and the first thing I did was to say, it was a hard day for all of us, but this is the best place that you can be. And part of that was that I have worked as a director to create an atmosphere of care and safety so that they understood that their humanity is valued and that they're not just producing work, that it's really coming from them. And we have talked about, like, what does it mean to be an artist and an activist at the same time? What is the conflict there? And so we went around and we all shared, if we wanted to, how we felt. And in the space, we held that for each other. And then we got to work. And I have to say that by the end of the evening, and I was pretty heartbroken, but by the end of the evening, I felt a real sense of joy in the space and resilience. And I think that our students, from that moment on, every time they came into the space to do their work, were conscious of the fact that they were practicing resilience, because they had deep, deep, deep personal feelings about the election. I mean, a lot of our students are queer, and they understand that a lot of oppression could be coming our way. A lot of the students who saw the work, who saw cabaret particularly, came back again. They came to see it several times. And yes, it was because it was entertaining, but also to them it was very meaningful and powerful. And they began to, I read student reflections that said they didn't really, they hadn't really thought about politics. They didn't really like politics. But after seeing the production, they really reconsidered their position in the society as a citizen, as someone responsive to what's going on.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
I have a follow-up question to Matthias's. Going back a bit further before these two productions that you've shown us, what kind of feedback have you gotten from your students, those you've trained, when they reach the real world, when they come into commercial theater, film, television? Do they tell you about what they've learned and whether they can still practice what you've taught them?
Well, I think that every student is different. Their needs and their expectations of what they're going to do with their theater degree, with their training, is different. I would love to tell you that they all continue to, like, generate really creative, audacious work, or to tell you that, oh, they're just really disappointed with theater in general. But some of them blend in quite well, and the training serves them in their own way, and they make their own choices. Several of the students I have worked with me in my company, and they choose to do that, even though I can't pay them as much as I would like to. They really value what my company is trying to do, which is constantly like promote social change through our work. Yeah, I think it's different for every student. One thing that I emphasize, because this was important to me in my journey, is that don't be an actor, be an artist. And to be an artist, you need to know what you're about. You need to know what you care about. You need to know what you believe in. And you need to understand how your art intersects with that. Like, why are you making work? Why are you doing work? But as I said, like some students just want to, you know, be in the movies. And like, I can't really change them. They have their own choices.
Any more questions or comments? I would be interested, maybe as a last question, whether there are different training approaches in the department at the moment, and how there might be tensions or contradictions within the department. Like when I was there in the 90s, all main stage productions looked very naturalistic. And it was a kind of a very Strasbourg-based approach to acting. So are students confused if they have teachers with different approaches? Is there are there tensions among the faculty, or are you all in this moving into a similar direction?
I honestly have never felt that the work I do is fully understood by my colleagues. That's my very honest answer. That said, I think it is appreciated. I had a talk with my program head the other day, and I was expressing my disappointment with the fact that we call my acting class Physical Approaches to Acting. Why don't we just call it acting? And because it's called Physical Approaches to Acting, and because it's an elective, my great disappointment is that not too many students take it. And I feel that if they did, they would have a radical shift, and in a great way. And I would enjoy making work and directing work at the university even more. So basically what I have to do in my rehearsal process is work with a lot of students who haven't encountered the method that I work in. And I basically salt the process. I season it selectively with work that I feel will be accessible to them, and then have them process that, and then see how far I can take them in a training way. That's like during the warm-up period. But then as a director, I'm able to make choices, help them make choices that are dialectical, even if they don't naturally sense that because they don't have the training. I can actually, as a director, create those interventions that shift their feeling and tone in a scene and their understanding of their work. Yeah, I wish everyone valued the work that I do as much as I do, but you know, I have to just keep doing it because I believe it's important.
Well, thank you for sharing with us this work, and I think we can send you a lot of appreciation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.